Today, Jason.
Good, thanks, Mario. Appreciate it.
What got you into finances in the first place?
Yeah, that's funny. I think looking back and I started my career in public accounting. So worked with spent a lot of time with Deloitte, which is one of the big four accounting firms that most people have heard of, obviously. I always looked at and what I was taught, growing up is that accounting is the foundation of business, really looking at business from the ground up. Finance is looking at business and the numbers from the top down. And
Okay.
if you really understand the financial side and the accounting and the financial statements of a company, there's a lot of value in understanding, business. And my goal ultimately was to get into the business environment, and I thought there was no better way than to really get into the guts of it, which is through the financial side of it. And through that, I've learned, what looks good, what doesn't look good, what creates success, what doesn't create success. And what I've also seen is a lot of business owners that, first time entrepreneurs, they don't have a background in finance and accounting, and to be successful, it's critical that they educate themselves on that. So, spent a lot of years working with business owners, entrepreneurs in that capacity as well.
I see. Why do you think so many people in business don't look at their finances?
I think it can be scary. I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they have a great idea. They know their trade, they know their product. Um, a lot of times there's some, a little bit less sophisticated, don't know what all is involved in running a business, or they think it's easier than really what it actually is. Meaning, if I'm a business owner, I can produce a good product. Maybe I can produce the product, and then I think, well, I'll just hire somebody that can do the accounting, and I'll hire somebody that can do sales and marketing, and then I can just focus on my product. And what I found is if that model doesn't work, if the business owner doesn't truly start to grasp and understand how to read their financial information, financial statements, if they don't understand and grasp, the strategies from a sales and business development and marketing perspective, the things start to break down. And so what I always tell business owners is you don't have to be the expert, but you have to know all aspects of your business, which includes, operations, which usually business owners are good at because that's where they came from, that's their background maybe. Uh, but also accounting, finance, business development, sales, marketing, HR. Never realized how important HR was until I had a business of my own, and the culture that can be created within a company as well.
Let's go there for a second because I think a lot of people focus on obviously sales. You need to, otherwise, I don't know what the heck you're selling or how you have any customers or clients. I'd say marketing is a big one and the craft. You're really good at
Mhm.
this one thing. I'll start my business. I hate working where I'm working. And you may or may not know what it takes to actually, the business acumen.
Yep.
I've never, maybe one other time out of 500 plus episodes, someone actually, and I think they had a fractional HR company. I've never
Yep.
really heard people touch on the HR side of things, and I have a few suspicions why. But why would you say HR is so vitally important?
Yeah. So I look at HR in a couple different ways. You have the compliance side and the tactical or um, the blocking and tackling. So you have, what falls under HR, payroll, benefits, those types of things. All important. Insurance, other types of insurance fall under HR. It's important that those things are handled and handled appropriately, obviously, very critical. But the real value that I found in HR when we hired somebody for our business that was in, strategic HR individual, really revolves around culture, and employees, employee growth. There's nothing more expensive than a good employee leaving your business. So how do I create an environment and a platform and a company that cultivates my team? They feel supported. Uh, they see their path within my business of what their growth looks like. They're continuously learning new things. They're able to take on new challenges. They see a growth path to being promoted, and they have the support from a manager that can provide them, the coaching to get there. So when you talk about culture, it's a lot more than, going to happy hour every once in a while and putting a ping pong table or a foosball table in the office. It's a, culture is critical to long-term success because, again, as I mentioned just a second ago, high employee turnover can be the downturn of a business. And creating a culture of long-term employees that are excited and want to grow and and are committed to the same goals is critical.
So you're telling me I can't just throw a beanbag in the break room?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's fun for a little while, and then everyone gets tired of it, and they realize, why they still don't like their job, right? So, how do you find an opportunity to provide to leverage the business you've created as a foundation for your employees to learn and grow that's aligned with the goals that you have for your business? And that was critical for us to do.
Now, for some context for our listeners, does it matter if you have less than five employees or contractors or over 100? Should you always be trying to create good culture? Or do you need a certain number of people to achieve it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think if you have five employees, you don't necessarily have to have the processes and the documented processes in place, but it's important that everybody understands their role, they know their role, and they understand what their role looks like today and tomorrow and in 3 to 5 years from now. And so, how can we get them excited about that path to want to be committed? If you have five employees and you lose one, that can be a huge hit to the business. You're losing 20% of your workforce, right? Depending on what that person which is critical. One of the things I'm most proud of is the first employee. So after I left Deloitte, I started a company and we grew it to about 75 employees. And the first employee that I hired in 2012, I believe, or 11 or 12, is still with the company. Um, we were acquired a year ago, and she's still with the new acquired company. And it's great. It's been a great success story. She's seen a lot. I've seen a lot. We laugh about when it was just the two of us. But it's a good story to tell.
Take me through the exit because I have I know people that have done multiple exits, and I've been on some of the masterminds I'm in. We've talked about the people in the group who are about to do it.
Mhm.
You don't change anything.
Mhm.
So you generally can't. And actually, some of our authors specialize in M&A for a specific niche. And I know a recurring theme is you don't tell anyone anything till after the deal is done because it can disrupt it and this and that. So I'm glad you're on such great terms with her already. How did she take it and how did you go about it?
Yeah.
Because that's really a testament to, I mean, geez, that's over a dozen years. And, she's still happy and thriving. And, you sound like you created a unique culture that seems rare.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
most
you
people
mean
are
from a
striving for it, but you're one of the few who actually did it.
Yeah, so you're referring to the exit process as it relates to employees.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's the toughest part, right? We always positioned ourselves as a growth company. And so with growth comes opportunities for everybody, for employees, for our clients, and opportunities for the business to ultimately, take different pathways, either through taking on financing or equity investment to grow even faster, making acquisitions of our own, or to ultimately be acquired. And, um, it wasn't something that we weren't actively pursuing at the time, but I think, I always had my mind out that, hey, this is probably the route that we were going to go. And before obviously is building a culture of where everybody has an understanding of their role and their, within their firm, within the firm, within our firm, and where they're successful. And then post, so you're right, it is a very challenging conversation. I think some people were very excited about it because we're joining a bigger firm that has even more opportunities. So if you're looking to continue to grow your career in a certain way, you're going to have even more opportunities. It's unlimited as to what you can get involved with at a larger firm that we're at. Others, it doesn't matter. None of that matters because they like and enjoy a smaller firm, under 100 people. And unfortunately, we want there to be an opportunity for them, but in some cases, that's just not what they want to pursue, and that's fine. But ultimately, hopefully, we can help them to be successful either within the firm here or help them to find, the right place where they want to be moving forward. There's obviously a lot of hesitancy. I mean, the biggest challenge is obviously transitioning IT and technology and those types of things. But I think we've been very consistent in how we communicated to our team, and the services that they're providing is the same they were providing before. They're reporting to the same people. So we try to soften that
Keep the
by
continuity.
creating that continuity. Absolutely.
What was the other than the employee conversation? What was the second hardest thing that someone should be aware of?
I think the employee conversation was probably the most challenging. I think when you really get into the guts of any transaction, understanding what's involved in a transaction or selling your business is critical. And that goes back to the foundation of what I'm all about, which is, the financial side of the business, right? 80% of the what they call the due diligence process is around the financial side of the business
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring that the buyer has confidence in what they're actually acquiring. And what I found a lot of times is you might be able to get, or with clients and with other, business owners, is through initial discussions, you might get a letter of intent from the buyer for a certain dollar amount. And then you go through due diligence and they identify risks associated with the business that you weren't prepared to answer or weren't prepared for in advance. And that lowers the purchase price to say, hey, you know what, we found these risks. We can't, because of these risks, we can't pay what we came in at on the letter of intent. We feel the value of the company because of these risks now is worth X amount less. And so they leave a lot on the table. So being able to prepare and understand how do I maximize value in the business before I actually go out to market or go into a sale is critical. And really having that mindset at all times because you never know what might come up. And if something does come up, you want to be in a position to maximize the value of your business so that you're very attractive and you can obtain maximum purchase price.
Is this why you would
So
say
that's
everyone should know their numbers?
absolutely, yeah. Not only know your numbers, but what does that mean as it relates to how your business is valued? And an example I like to use is let's say you have a manufacturing business, and it's important to understand how are manufacturing businesses or in your industry or your niche, how are they valued? And a lot of companies are valued by a buyer on a percentage of EBITDA, which is effectively your bottom line, your net income, and then you'll add back things like if you have taxes or interest or depreciation, amortization. So EBITDA is basically earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So you get this number. And your industry might say, hey, well, these businesses in your market are valued at between 4 and 8 times EBITDA. Well, if I'm a business owner, do I want to be valued at 4 times or 8 times? Because that's twice as much,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Eight
You might have the
times. What's
same
the highest
EBITDA
multiplier
as
you
my
can get?
neighbor, right? If I have $1 million in EBITDA and if I'm at 4 times, I'm worth 4 million. Someone's going to pay me $4 million for it. This company over here might have a $1 million in EBITDA, but because they understand what creates more value in their business, someone's willing to pay $8 million for them. So it's critical to know those things. And the easiest ones are client concentration. If I have 70% of my revenue from one client, that's going to significantly devalue my business. So how do I de-risk by having less of a concentration? Another one which owners don't think about is reliance on owner. If I want to sell my business and I'm the only person that brings in sales and I'm the only person that oversees operations, and if I walk out the door, how much value is left in this business? Probably not a lot. So how do I build the management structure and the team around me, and the sales and marketing and other aspects of the business to basically operate without me? And that adds value to my business. And there's other things also based on what industry you might be in, multi-location versus single location, where you might be positioned. All these different things help to add and
Real
maximize
estate
value.
assets, do you own the
Absolutely.
building or not?
Right. Yeah. At the same revenue, you might have the same revenue or same bottom line as somebody else, but you're worth a lot more because you've done these things over the years to separate yourself. Even having documented policies and procedures, that adds value to your business over the company next door, right? That might
Yeah,
do the same thing
if
that
you
you
need to
do.
scale and get more uh, people on your staff, uh, how do you log into the thing? What's the process? How are we using it? I don't know. Ask
Right.
Jenny or ask Bobby or whatever. And there, there's no
Yep.
process versus A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You can get anyone to
Right.
follow that.
Right. Yeah, and so that all comes down to knowing your numbers and how do I maximize profitability. So one, it's what do I do to maximize the valuation number, that 4 to 8 times multiple, and then what do I do then to maximize profitability? And a lot of it then comes down to looking at the margins of the product or services that you're selling, and really digging in and saying, okay, you know, one, how do I measure it? And then what can I do to improve on this so that I'm that much better than the company next to me as well? And so now I went from a 1 million EBITDA to a $1.2 million EBITDA. Well, I just at 8 times EBITDA now, someone's going to pay 1.6 million more for me now than they were when I was a $1 million EBITDA. So, I mean, all of that adds up is how do I work within the business to drive those results? And that's what we work with our clients on.
Very cool. I know not everyone wants to exit, and I still think you should design the business that it should be sellable, even if you don't want to sell it, because it's just going to make for a better company. But
Mhm.
what else should someone look at if they're not looking to exit? How else would the data analytics, everything you've specialized in and helped so many companies with, what else is another benefit of going, you know what, we really need to get into the data more?
Yeah, so there's historical numbers and then there's forward-looking numbers. And the most important thing from a day-to-day perspective of a business is cash flows. So my income statement might tell me I'm making money, but my cash flows might say, hey, I'm actually losing cash. And so why is that, right? So if we go back to a manufacturing company, maybe I've had to buy a lot of inventory. So my cash effectively is in inventory, or maybe I haven't collected my AR and I'm having to pay out AP,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't have enough cash. So understanding the cash flows of your business is critical. And best practice, what we put in place right away is a 13-week forward-looking cash flow that helps to as you go out beyond 13 weeks, it becomes a little bit more hazy, but really give the business owner confidence that they understand where their cash is coming from, where it's going, and that I'm gonna have enough cash for payroll, um, how much I can ultimately pay myself as the business owner, being able to budget effectively to be able to maximize what I can pay myself, but also maximize what I can pay my employees, have cash for payroll, and what am I reinvesting back into the business? So having that understanding of cash is critical. If you don't know anything else, make sure you at least know, okay, what is what's the cycle of cash in my business? And then you can work to maximize that through negotiating payment terms with customers or vendors to ultimately maximize your cash flow.
So, what I love about this is so many people talk about the sales, the profit, the margins, and all these things. 100% agree you need to know those. But you could get 100 grand this week. You might get 10 grand this week. If you're not using it effectively, you might get $1 million this month. If you're not using it effectively, that might only last for 3 weeks versus 26 weeks, right?
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And so understand it's all about understanding how your business operates as well. And having that visibility. I mean, what keeps a business owner up at night? It's being able to make payroll, right? And a business owner is the last person that gets paid anyway. So you might show you're profitable again, but you started the business because you want to ultimately be able to have the luxury to pay yourself as well, and hopefully pay yourself well. That's the risk and the reward of being a business owner. But so managing and understanding that cash flow is critical, and it also helps to define, do I need financing? Do I need a line of credit to support? Is there some seasonality in my business where a line of credit really makes sense? And having your numbers in place. When you go to a bank and you tell them, hey, I want a line of credit, the first thing they're going to tell you is, great, sounds awesome. Let me see your financials, right? And if you hit print on QuickBooks and you send them your financials and there hasn't been any thought put into it, um, you lose some level of credibility at either getting the financing, making it more difficult on yourself, or not getting as good of terms as you could if you gave them a nice, credible, good looking professional package.
Okay, I got so many more questions now, but I have to touch on specifically what you said. As a publisher, I'm very hyper aware of words. And you didn't say if your finances aren't as good as they should be, or they're not as done as they should be, or up to date. You said no thought went into them. Why
Mhm.
specifically? Have you ever seen this happen with an entrepreneur before where there's literally no thought that goes into it? They literally just hit print.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times where they'll have their bookkeeper say, "Hey, I'm trying to get a loan or I'm trying to get financing or a line of credit." They're asking, here's the list, here's what they're asking for. Just send this over to them, right? And that is, I would say, one of the biggest cardinal sins, I guess you can make, because as a business owner, I want to control the narrative and I want to tell the story. I don't want a third party to create their own story or interpret things in a way maybe they shouldn't be interpreting things. So if I hit print from QuickBooks, I've now given them the detail of every single account I have on my financials. Things that probably are very immaterial, but if a banker sees it, might kind of raise an eye and say, "Well, what's this?" Right? Or
Mm-hmm.
"What's that?" And if it's not material, and it may be interpreted incorrectly, so I like to summarize it neatly. I like to give them the information that they're really looking for, which is the revenues, maybe by product line, the cost of goods sold, maybe by product line, maybe summarized. Have a good understanding of what your margins are. I give it to them summarized, in an annual basis or most recent 6 months. If they ask for monthly, have it very consistent, a nice package. The lower level expenses, the what I call SG&A, sales, general administrative, summarize those into buckets versus, you know, 100 different line items of who knows what, right? Because that's just 100 different questions that the banker can ask, right? We're not trying to hide anything. We're just trying to make it easier on them. We're trying to show that we're professional. We have credibility. We know what we're doing. And if they want to dig deeper into the numbers, not a problem at all. We'll open up the books. But there's no need to show them. And the banker, quite honestly, they'll tell you, yeah, I hate when I get financials that look like this because then I have to try to make sense of it and I have to, what's this? Give me nice, clean financials. We can dig into them as we want to based on where the bank sees the risks. And it really simplifies the process.
I love that. Thank you for
And then be
sharing.
able to speak to them. As the business owner, know your financials so you can answer the questions. Don't bring the bookkeeper in to answer the questions. The bank wants to know that you as a business owner can answer those questions because you know your business and you know your financials.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like untangling Christmas lights. It's like we just want the thing lit up and the house looking good. We don't need to spend four
Right.
hours
Yep.
untangling it. And that's why I asked it, because I've seen a lot and heard a lot, and I'm not even in your industry. And I'm like, oh, he said that specifically. Um,
Yeah.
uh, do you favor accrual or cash accounting?
I mean, I obviously I favor accrual-based accounting. Cash basis can be done and is advantageous in some cases for tax purposes, but for evaluating your business, understanding the trends of your business, what's happening, understanding the margins of your business, you virtually have to be on accrual basis. Um,
Better for
it
forecasting?
Absolutely, yeah. And for cash base, and again, that's what our cash flow forecasting is for, right? You have your accrual-based financials over here, and then at the same time, you're forecasting your cash flows as you move forward. And so you have your understanding of what's happening with your cash, but to truly understand the metrics associated with your business, to be able to make decisions, it's really got to be on an accrual basis. And it's an easy conversion to cash for tax purposes if you need to do that as well.
Very good, very good. You had mentioned AR and AP with the accounts receivable and accounts payable. How long would you say, and I know it's going to be different by industry, but how long would you say receivables should be going for?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say 30 days or less. And I would do everything I could to get those under 30 days, right? So either potentially some incentives or how you collect. Um, you we got to a point where we would collect either, everything by ACH, where the client agreed that, we would send them an invoice and we would process the funding and the invoice within 5 days of the receipt of the invoice. Obviously, if they have any questions, absolutely, we want to talk through it, want to make sure they're comfortable. We have a process also throughout the period to make sure that they understand what's going to be what the budget is and what's going to be on the invoice each period before they even receive it, so there's no questions. But obviously, the quicker you can reduce that average AR balance, that's cash, right? And you can maintain that consistently. On the other end of the spectrum, you want to extend your AP if you can. You want to be responsible and you want to be a good, however, at the same time, you do want to be a good vendor to your
Mm-hmm.
to your vendors. I'm sorry, you want to be a good customer to your vendors. There are some vendors that it makes sense to pay more regularly because they're valuable to you and your business and they give you special treatment because of that. So it really depends. Unless necessary, I wouldn't, you don't necessarily need to be paying bills before they're due. And if you don't have any cash concerns at all, it's not a big deal. But if you're really looking to extend cash and maximize what you can do with it, there's a few things that you can do to extend those vendor payments.
Well, I appreciate your insight on it, because, like I was saying before, there's so many people go, "Oh, we need to increase sales." Well, that's great. I agree 100%. But if you don't know what you're doing with it, you can just switch the terms around here
Mm.
and have this whole other area that is still very much legit. You're just changing
Yep.
the terms of it.
Right.
You can remove a lot of the pressure. When you said before 30 days, not 30.
Yeah,
I've heard a
absolutely.
lot of people say 45 to 60, because it gives you know people that are buying from you might like it more, but now you have this crunch on yourself, and you could be running
Right.
a deficit for 12 to 29 days or whatever.
Right. And I know there is a lot of nuance, and the answer is always it depends,
Depends.
right? And you
And
say, well, it
industry.
doesn't work like that in my industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I need to keep this client happy, so I need to extend the terms, or they have more power over me. Or, I mean, you can break it down on maybe you extend some terms for some and maybe not others. I've seen companies that, maybe you can take a deposit up front for a certain percentage of the service the or the product. that you're producing to help cover some of those costs. That will significantly improve cash flows. It's important to understand what the industry does and even try some things out. I think I've seen a lot of times where you think, I could never do that. And then you do it and nobody says anything, right? And all of a sudden
Here's
you've
the new
improved your
standard.
business. Right. And so, trying some things out in a smaller scale is always is a good strategy as well.
What would you say is better for accepting payments? Credit cards, cash, ACH, wire? I know that's all basically cash. Cash versus credit cards. What are the
Yeah, I
pros
mean,
and cons?
yeah, I mean, the credit cards is easier in some cases, but you have the fee, right? So we tried to move away from credit cards to ACH. Um, if possible, ACH is a little bit easier. Wires, work as well. Um, I try to stay away from physical checks because, the check's in the mail, right? Or where is it? Or who's gonna, and so, um,
Yeah, you can
but
process it
credit cards
digitally.
especially though, I mean, you're getting charged 3-4%. That's significant. That can be significant if that's all of your revenue is through credit card. Some businesses, that's the only option, if you're selling online or whatnot. But I try to push other avenues. Maybe you have credit. What we did is we have credit card in our back pocket. The client really wants to pay credit card. Yeah, we can do that, but it's not on our agreement initially. It's not what we start with. Um, and if they say, hey, you know what, we really have to use credit card, great, we can do that too. We'll switch up the agreement, but we don't typically give them the option unless it's something
Oh,
they
you
ask
don't
for.
lead with it, but you obviously, if someone wants to give you a large amount, you're going to
Yep,
take it.
correct. Yep.
As you should. I mean, everyone's got their
Yeah.
own reasons why they want to do it. I mean, is there
Yeah.
any? So, do you have a preference over ACH or wire?
Uh, I think well, ACH is tends to be less expensive for both sides, so I prefer ACH. Depends. Sometimes the wire fee can get trans. I think can depends on where the wire fee is coming from.
Okay.
If you can get set up effectively on ACH, it streamlines the process, makes it a lot easier for everybody. Um, would be the preferred route, I would say.
Okay. Very cool. Because I know that we're going like two, three layers deep here, and it's like, okay, cool. You want the profits, you want the sales, maximize it with the efficiency, but then it's like, okay, how are they paying? Because that's a
Right.
whole other ballgame in and of itself.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I think you can give them options. But if you put due upon receipt, I found they're going to put it in the 30-day plus pile because there's no specific date.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always start with, hey, 15 days, 10 days, 5 days, 30, no longer than 30 days, depending on what industry you're in. I know in construction, a lot of it is, hey, well, we pay you when we get paid. So, it kind of goes down the line and well, you get, your some over here, then you have a subcontractor over here, and then they pay the general contractor, and then they do this. So, or I'm sorry, vice versa. But um, so it really depends on the industry as well.
Yeah, that does play a role. Um, is there anything I haven't asked you that someone should be focused on with their numbers? That's like a big one that most people don't think of.
I would say really it's ensure you have a process to produce monthly financial statements that you can make decisions on. So, you may have in your mind, what are my margins? And I've heard before, well, it's somewhere between 40 and 50%. Well, that's a big difference. That could be a big difference. 40%, 45%, 1 percentage point on a $10 million company, is what is that, 100 grand,
Mm-hmm.
right? So uh, if you're off 5 percentage points, that's $500,000 of profit that you may not be getting because you don't have your margins dialed in. And what I like to do is look at it by the percentage point. And so, hey, what's our goal? 48%. Okay. Well, we're at 46. How do we get to 48? And then when we get to 48, how do we get beyond that?
How do you get to 50?
Um, how do we get to 50? Right. And there's little tweaks you can make that make a huge impact. And the margin is so critical because that difference falls straight to the bottom line. All else being equal on your other expenses, like your payroll, your rent, your other G&A expenses. If you can improve your margin, you're going to have more profits and ultimately cash and cash flow as a result. So that's the what I would focus on. And then obviously budgeting and forecasting for the next year is critical in my mind, so that you can really understand what your expense structure will look like and should look like based on expectations of certain level of growth or lack of growth.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing that too, because like you're saying, the 46 to 48, 48 to 50, that's 4%. That could just be
Mhm.
ACH versus credit cards right there.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
And that's
And
assuming you have a
that's
decent rate from 2.9 to 3.5, because I know some will charge more.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So it's it's important. I mean, spending that time and effort to learn your financial information, putting a little bit more into it, making sure you have the right team in place to do that, the right leadership, is critical because the decisions you make it's not only producing better results and profitability now, it's you're getting 8 times that. Let's say in a previous example we gave, you're getting 8 times that in the future when you sell. So if I increased uh, my margin by 1% and I'm a $10 million business, I now improve my EBITDA by 100 grand. And when I sell, I'm now selling my business for $800,000 more than I would have sold it yesterday at 1% less margin. So that is those small percentage points is can add up to add up to a lot.
I want to ask you about the 13 weeks. You had said we go out
Yeah.
13 weeks. Why not 12? Why not 14? How'd you decide on 13?
Yeah, 13 is really I mean, in the simplest way, it's basically 1/4 of the
That's what I
year.
thought.
13 weeks is 1/4.
Plus a
Yeah. And
bonus week.
so yeah, I mean the round, an average month is 4.2 weeks, right? So yeah, round of 13 weeks. And then, and the reality is once you go beyond that a quarter, it gets a little fuzzier, right? I can forecast cash tomorrow, probably very, very close. A week out, not quite as accurate, 13 weeks out, not as accurate as 12, et cetera. So, but I should be able to forecast it fairly accurately moving forward where I know the movement of certain things will truly impact me and I'll know, hey, based on how my business is operating right now, I know in 10 weeks I'm not going to have cash if I do everything else the same as I'm doing right now. So what do I need to do to speed up either some level of how do I collect on old AR? How do I get some clients to pay more quickly? Maybe I need to push out some payments. And that's what's great about having that model, the forecasting model is I can move some things around and I can say, okay, great. Now I'm actually going to push out this payment to week 11 because I do know in week 10 I can receive this payment. So now I'm not going to be losing cash. I'm not going to be out of cash in week
Mm-hmm.
10 anymore. And so you can start looking at it from that perspective so that you're not stressing on a Sunday night thinking, oh crap, how I gotta find a couple hundred grand to make payroll by Friday. You don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, cut expenses, increase sales too.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Well, I appreciate the insight on that. I got one more question before we thank our sponsor. And do you prefer yellow? This isn't the question, but yellow or black?
We'll go with black.
Heck yeah. Black. What do you like to do for fun outside of all
Yeah.
this? Because you're clearly killing it here. What do you like to do to
Yeah.
step away from it?
Yeah. I have 3 young daughters. So 12, soon to be 13, 11, and 7. So they keep up a lot of time.
Fun ages.
Like to, what's that?
Fun ages.
Yeah, so we're busy all the time with that. I like to spend some alone time with my wife if we can. There's a local wine bar a couple blocks away that we'll walk to and enjoy a glass of wine maybe once a week. Um, those are the things I'm really focused on right now. I do live in San Diego, so I will, I attempt to surf, although
Okay.
I haven't been out in a while. I'm not very good at it, but I do attempt to do that, try to get out there and the kind of hikes and walking around and stuff too.
Yeah, it's a nice area.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We're going to thank our sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. And we are back with the imperfect action round. Jason, are you ready to take imperfect action?
I'm ready.
What is the fastest path to the cash?
Fastest path to the cash. Is this a trick question here?
No, I ask I ask everyone this, and I'm excited because you're all about cash and profits and finances.
Yeah. I mean, from kind of how we talked about it, it's the fastest path to the cash is understanding your cash flow and working with your customers and understanding how to maximize your payment cycles. So we talk about accounts receivable and when you get paid, how you get paid, um, that I think is probably the quickest and most effective way to the cash.
Very good. What's number two? What's the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
Well, because of what I do, the biggest problem is, they don't have they don't have an understanding of their financial information. And usually they realize that when it's urgent, when they need financing, when they need to get an audit done, or when they're trying to buy a building, or when they're trying to do something. And so that is critical to have that in place. Um, and the fastest way around is, obviously making sure you as a business owner understand how to read financial information, educating yourself, but then also hiring and making sure you have the experts. And there's good experts out there. They can be expensive, but that's why we do what we do, which is, on a fractional basis to make sure that we provide that leadership and make sure that you get what you need at a price point that's reasonable as well.
Very good. Number three, what's the best way to maximize client lifetime value?
I go back to communication, personal relationships, and building that trust and rapport is and talking to them and in person if possible, but on Zoom or conversations is so much more valuable than email and treating them like a number.
Mm-hmm.
But to maximize, I mean, ultimately it comes down to, building that rapport and then following through on the product or service that you've committed to. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. But ultimately build that relationship and allow them to use your expertise in that product or service to generate and improve the business that they have.
Very good. As a publisher, I got to ask you about books. Which ones would you recommend to Expert Authority World?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm reading a couple right now. One of them is interesting. It's a little I mean, so I'll go back to a number of years ago first. I started with I really liked the Rich Dad Poor Dad books. I don't know if you've read those. And kind of the mindset around that was something that I really liked. There's a book I'm reading right now called A Pocket Full of Money. A lot of it's around mindset. It's not about how do I make myself rich, but ultimately it translates it to, you know, how do I, you how do I leverage or how, what is my mindset? And, ultimately we all are given the ability to, um, operate in this world, and we have unlimited ability to do what we want to or can do. Um, So how do I maximize that opportunity through, ultimately it's, you know, wealth is one part of it, but if you have wealth, then what do you do to give back and create a better legacy as far as giving back and bettering, the world, making the world better than it was before.
I like
And
that.
so I'm not explaining it very well, I don't think, but
No, you are.
there's a lot of tie-ins to kind
I,
of,
I
how to leverage the success or opportunities that we've have in this life to create a better world for others.
I like it. I feel like more people should be focused on that because it's not just about what you can do now and about you. Like, who are the people you can impact?
Right.
All right, where would you like people to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I love talking to business owners. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can find me very easily on LinkedIn. That's Jason Kruger, Kruger. I'm a partner at Citrin Cooperman. That's CRTRIN Cooperman. Feel free to email me anytime. The letter J, Kruger, Kruger at citrincooperman.com. If I can help somebody out, I'm happy to do that. If I can't personally, I usually know somebody that might, that does or can. And happy to introduce them to the right person as well.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time and insights and appreciate you sharing on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mario. Really appreciate it.
All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I'll see you on the next one.